Today's topic was really inspired by a comment left on one of my videos, and it was really about the idea of apologizing, about how a lot of people have a problem apologizing and how it's so important to apologize. And so I told this person that that was a great idea. I had not really done something about apologizing before, and so I'm going to talk about that today. And we're going to explore not only some reasons why people have difficulty apologizing, but what are the real advantages of apologizing. And I'm going to share my history of learning to apologize from the time I was very young, when I was a child. So we're going to get to that in just a second. Hi, welcome back, everyone. I'm Allison, aka Elder Gal. So welcome back to the channel. So apologizing. Apologizing is huge. And if you've watched some of my videos, I know in particular the video where I talked about my son, that I talked about the fact that I did apologize to him numerous times when he was a teenager and probably even in his early 20s. But I'm a big believer in apologizing. Anyway, in a little bit, I'm going to tell you the story of how I really learned to apologize from the time I was a little child, actually. But first, let's talk about, so why is apologizing such a big deal? Well, there are people, I'm sure you've encountered them in your life, there are people that just won't apologize. They don't like to apologize. Because to them, that means they did something wrong, and they don't want to admit they did something wrong. That's a big reason for not apologizing. Another reason for not apologizing is people just were not raised to do that. Their family didn't encourage them to apologize when they did something wrong. And so a whole bunch of people in our society and probably around the world grew up not apologizing. In fact, in some cultures, actually, it is considered not good to actually apologize. So, I mean, that's rare, but it is true of some historic cultures. So the thing is, what is the point of apologizing? Why should we do it? So why is apologizing so important? Well, first of all, it helps your relationships with other people. If you're willing to admit when you're wrong and actually apologize for that, that goes a long way to building and cementing relationships with other people. It also makes you more humble. Anyone that can admit when they're wrong is just by nature more humble. They're more willing to look at themselves more honestly and not be so full of themselves that they think that everything they do is right. So I think it's important for that. It also is a very kind gesture. It's a very kind gesture to apologize to people. When I was growing up, my dad was really an inspiration to me. He was a very loving person. He was a very good person in many ways. He wasn't perfect, but he certainly had a lot of good qualities. And thank gosh I had him in my life, because that's where I learned any of the things that I do that are good and kind and caring. It comes from him. Because my mother was always a challenge when I was growing up. And one of the things that my mother was really bad at was apologizing. In fact, I can count on one hand the number of times my mother apologized to me in her life. On one hand. And so she was not big on apologizing. She did not like to apologize. But when my dad was still alive, my dad was one of these people that was perfectly okay with apologizing. He was also really good at making fun of himself, which I also learned from him. And but my mother had this weird reaction to things when I was growing up. And what she would do is, she was one of these people that she would take so much stress in the household, like people would, snap at her or whatever, whether it was mostly my sister probably, and me to some degree. My sister was 7 years older. I don't think she and my dad fought that much, or if they did, they didn't fight around us. But my mother would kind of bottle up things, and then it would blow in her. But instead of blowing like somebody having a angry outburst, she would start crying and go to her room and literally stay for like 2 days. She would just go in her room for 2 days. And I mean, she would come out sooner, though, if we apologized. Now, even if we didn't have anything to apologize for, I learned very quickly that I was supposed to apologize. And I still have one of the notes that I gave my mother when I was a child. I got it from her stuff when she was older. And it's me like 8 years old writing a note saying, "Mommy, I'm so sorry. Please come out," like, of the room. And where did I learn to do that? From my dad. My dad encouraged my sister and I, and actually, really, I remember him encouraging me to apologize to her, even if I hadn't done anything wrong. Now, of course, that kind of set a strange precedent for me where for a while in my life, I did tend to apologize, like over apologize for things, because I was so programmed to apologize even if I hadn't done anything wrong that I apologized at the drop of a hat at some point. So it would work if we would do the note or slip. My dad would do little cards to her and stuff like that. If we could send her enough little stuff under the door, she would come out early and, resume making dinner or whatever. So the thing is, it was important. We had to do it to kind of maintain the peace in the household. But now looking back on it, I realize how weird that was. My mother required an apology even when the other person didn't do anything wrong, which was kind of weird. So fortunately, my mom stopped doing that to some degree after my dad died. So I didn't have to keep, I was always quick to apologize, though. If my mother did get in a bad mood or something like that, I would just go, "I'm sorry, Mommy. Like, I'm sorry." And so I was really well trained in this. And like I said, the pendulum can swing too far that way. I'm not advocating that people over apologize or teach kids to do that. Don't think it's a great thing. But you should teach kids to actually apologize if they do something wrong. And I was very tuned into that from the time I was, very young. So that's one thing I've always been willing to do, is apologize. I don't have a lot of ego about it. I don't have a lot of false sense of like, "Oh, I can't admit I'm wrong," or, my world will fall apart. No, I'm the first to admit if I'm wrong. If I do something wrong, I'll admit it. If there's something to apologize for, I'll do it. And frankly, thank gosh I have that, because I am not perfect. And I've made a lot of mistakes, as I've shared on this channel. So thank gosh I was at least willing to apologize. And they're honest apologies. I don't just apologize for no reason. I do apologize when I know I've blown it, when I know I've done something wrong, especially if I've hurt somebody or I feel like I've, I always think about that. So like I said, I'm not saying this to make myself sound so great, but it is, when that person made that comment about apologizing, I thought, you know what? That is a topic near and dear to my heart, because I do believe in apologizing. I can't stand it when I'm around somebody who will not apologize. My mother, it was very trying dealing with her for, most of my life. But I did it because I loved my mother. But the thing is I really get irritated when people don't apologize. Whether it's small things or big things, doesn't really matter. If you're a person who's willing to apologize, that is huge. That is huge. And that's kind of, to me, the litmus test of basic human consideration. Basic human consideration, people, apologizing. So I hope all of you out there, most of you out there, apologize. Please do. It will make your life easier. It will make you feel better about yourself. It will make other people feel better about you as a person. Like I said, if you've ever been around people, and please share in the comments below if you have experience with people who've never apologized. When you're around somebody who will not apologize, it's so frustrating. It's so maddening, because you just think to yourself, why can't they do this simple thing? Admit they're wrong. Because you know what? I hate to break it to you. I hope you're sitting down. We've all been wrong at some point in time. In fact, we've all been wrong at several points in time. So it happens. Apologize. Move on. Don't wallow in the apology. Don't do what I was trained to do as a child and over apologize. But apologize when you need to. Move on. You will, you will trust me, save relationships, save friendships, save business connections, even in business, even in the workplace. It's important to apologize. So it's not just at home. So I hope you take this to heart, and I hope you practice it in your everyday life. Apologies. So, and you know what? One more thing I'll add on that. When you make an apology, you say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I did such and such. I apologize for that. That's how you say it. You don't say, oh, I regret that this thing happened. Because then that takes you out of the equation, and it's like this vague third person kind of thing. No, it's not I regret it happened. It's I apologize. I did something wrong. That's how apologies work. So until next time, be well, be kind, keep moving forward, and take care. Bye.